The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. We're very grateful that they continue to support your show, which enables us to bring it to you. Michael Guerin, we're on the eve of the $1 million Miracle Mile. No direct Kiwi involvement, although there are some ownership shares in some of the runners, and it all sort of unfolded last Saturday night, not in the Kiwis' favour.
Yeah, hi Greg, big hi to everybody around New Zealand and Australia. It's a hell of a race. Doesn't really matter if there's any Kiwis in it or not from a training perspective. Very balanced race this year. I'm looking forward to being at Menangle on Saturday night. I love the way the race is stacking up, Greg, with these not so much old but older established open class stars. Spirit of St. Louis, of course, is still partly owned in New Zealand. Honolulu Bay, who has been really, really good over the summer, against the 4-year-olds, and Catch a Wave and Captain Ravishing, and whether the baton is passed this week or whether they say, well, we're not quite going to give up to you young boys just yet. It's going to be a hell of a race, a big New Zealand winning a chance in the New South Wales Derby, with Aotearoa equal favourite in Australia after drawing barrier 2. Lots of moving parts, Greg. A very good punters' night. It's a night where there's not these Mark Purdon, Emma Stewart trained $1.20 chances who are going to win everything. So we'll try and get to the bottom of that, as well as, Greg, a return to Alexandra Park. And I tell you what, there was times when I've been sitting at home in Auckland with the rain just torrential over the last month, and you thought to yourself, how the hell are they going to fix that?
Well, we'll be able to show you tonight, Michael. We've got some updated photos courtesy of John Denton, and you'll see that Alexandra Park looks in pristine order for the return there on Friday. What about what's happening for you on your box seat? Yes, we'll get right into the Menangle review from last Saturday night and a preview Miracle Mile night, and as Michael's just mentioned, Derby night. Stylish Memphis, she finished her racing career in the Queen Elizabeth. We'll have a look back at her best performance in our opinion. Country Cups wrap from around New Zealand. Alexandra Park and Addington previews Thursday for Addington this week. Alexandra Park Friday. Team Teal the update there, and we will try and find you some winners with our hand-milking best bets. We thought we'd start on the Derby this Saturday night and go back and have a look at the heats. Aotearoa is 3 back on the fence. Things panned out beautifully for him, Michael. Was the slowest overall time of the 3 heats, but when he powered up here, he looked a horse perfectly suited to Menangle.
Look, he did. Ideally, I prefer horses at Menangle who can get on the speed and stay there, but most of Tim Williams' winning drives so far at this carnival have at least not burnt off the gate, and we'll see one later who tried, and it didn't work. In second place there is King of Swing's little brother, Rock and Roll Hammer, so he was really good. As you said, not the overall quickest time. Here's the Victorian pacer, Catalpa Rescue. Now you're looking for the horse pretty much outside of the winning bunch there, not the absolute 2 outside extreme ones. This is a horse, Greg, who has really improved every run this summer. So basically he's got better and better and better. You would have put it in the Derby market 100 to 1 6 weeks ago. In this Derby, without the biggest stables there and with this horse's improvement curve, it becomes a real chance, albeit drawn wide this week. This is the last heat. Now, 2 things here. Naturally Gifted's the horse who pulls to the middle of the track in the shadow roll. It's really good. The horse down on the marker pegs is the horse to beat in the Derby. He's worked hard here early. A lap from home, they've really, really burnt up, and he's ended up not being able to get a gap in the straight until too late. We'll look at the market or the field, Greg. He is better be the best. He's alongside Aotearoa for me, and in my opinion, he's the horse to beat for Nathan Turnbull, because what we didn't see there was how hard they went in the middle stages. He was the New South Wales Blue Challenge winner. That was about 6 starts ago, and ran second to a very good horse in the New South Wales Challenge. So, look, he's the horse to beat for mine. He's drawn barrier 8-ish. I think he comes into 6. Aotearoa absolutely can win. Team Telfer Cullen have picked exactly the right derby to go to because it's very even, but it doesn't have a big name just yet. So, yep, they get their chance, Greg, after what's been an ups and down carnival for Team Telfer because the horses have been doing really good things. They've just had not a lot of luck in some occasions, and then Karlua Flyby in the Oaks last week ended up burning early in a race where that just panned out to be not where you wanted to be.
Let's have a look at the market. Equal favourites, as you mentioned, Michael. 350 Aotearoa and Better Be the Best. I concur with you. The Nathan Turnbull trained and driven runner looks very hard to beat with any luck in running. Dangerous at 650. Spirit of Arion, who's also part owned by some Kiwis, and amongst the owners is Graham Anderson, Trevor Casey and Diane Riley, who's had such a good run in recent times with the Grimson camp. And then you're getting out to sort of $16 for Blazing Home and Catalpa Rescue, who was good for Team Sanderson. A $9 chance. That's the Derby, goes at 10.23. Sticking with Menangle, let's go to the qualifiers for the Miracle Mile. Here's Spirit of St. Louis, doing what he does best. This was slower than the Honolulu Bay heat win, but he was very good and really savaged the line here, Michael.
Well, the time's crucial. They're at 152. That means his sprint, because he's always been a speed horse, was still there. Hurricane Harley sat parked and just held on for a second. Bondi Lockdown was third. They went 25.8 for the last quarter. So I actually would have put Bondi Lockdown on the Miracle Mile, Greg. I think he's worth more to the Miracle Mile than Braveview Kelly, who we'll see shortly. But I understand the rationale of not doing it. It's what I would have done if I was a director, because I didn't think he could win that race with the 25.8 sectional. He's got gate speed, Spirit of St. Louis. He actually got crossed there by the WA horse, Penny Tiger, and then retook the lead. So the question is, can he lead this week? And if he does lead, will they go slow enough to let him be that explosive up the straight? So yes, he can win the Miracle Mile, but I think he might need to go 4 seconds faster to do so.
All right, let's have a look at the second of the heats and the star of the summer in so many ways. Michael has been Honolulu Bay. He's come up favourite for the Miracle Mile and getting back in the field when they're going 49. Well, it's not always an advantage, but have a look at him. Get to and past Expensive Ego, and he's done this under his own steam in many respects.
He's been fantastic all summer. The races he has been beaten in have been against him. So races like the Ballarat Cup, where he had to come from last and copy that was in front. Into Dominion, he was the first horse in the running line to get home. He finished fourth in a race where the tempo to set up for the leaders on the marker pegs. He's just come a long way since they did one thing, and that was start driving him cold, Greg. And it's incredibly rare for Emma Stewart trained horses to be driven cold. Like a lot of the good barns, they don't drive a lot of the All-Stars horses cold either. They tend to like to roll forward. They've got the best horses. They tend to like to park out or lead. They haven't done that with this horse. It's been the absolute making of him. No doubts, alongside I Cast No Shadow and Copy That if you take his New Zealand form into play, they've been the three best performed open class horses of the summer. Only one of them's in the Miracle Mile. So he picks himself, Greg. I spoke to David Moran this week about whether he would maybe use his gate speed because he is drawn well enough and could potentially get the lead. He said, why would we change? This formula's working for us. Yep. I don't see him being back to last because when they settle, he should be midfield outer. The question is then, does Captain Ravishing take off and does Expensive Ego take off? Do they all take off, in which case he could go back to last? But if that happens, they'll also generate an enormous amount of pressure, Greg. So for me, he's clear top pick to win the Miracle Mile, Honolulu Bay.
You did something a little bit different this week as part of your radio commitments in Australia, and if people do get the opportunity, they can just go on Twitter and click on Michael Guerin and go back and have a listen to it. Explain to those who don't know what you did. You called 3 competitors in the race, and asked them basically how they saw the race regardless of their horse.
Yeah, what I said to them was, to Andy Gath, to Luke McCarthy and to David Moran, is pretend you're not in this race, pretend you're watching it at home or in the driver's room. What do you actually think is going to happen? And by removing those people's emotion from those conversations, what you tend to get is their best analysis. And it's really important, because otherwise people keep saying we, whereas once you start people saying this and that, it becomes a lot more mathematical for them. David Moran said exactly what that. I'm going to be off the speed. Everybody tends to think, of the people I spoke to, and there's only 3 of them there, but they're pretty knowledgeable, is that Spirit of St. Louis and Mark Dan go forward and both want the same spot. Spirit of St. Louis probably holds it. Then the question mark is, does Catch a Wave come around and re-attack, knowing he's never been beaten in front? Excuse me. And then if that doesn't happen, if Captain Ravishing, and Luke McCarthy made the really good point on Expensive Ego, I'm going to go back at the start and drive them cold. If those two are back in the running line last and second last, they can't just sit there, surely. No. So do they take off? Gets trickier. If Honolulu Bay's in the 1-1 and Captain Ravishing's on his back, can you leave the favourites back? Tricky question. So the boys gave me really good answers to what they thought was going to happen. Most of them had Spirit of St. Louis in front. And then the big question is, does Catch a Wave come first and potentially get the lead, or get parked and wait for a Captain Ravishing? Captain Ravishing's the most interesting horse in the race, because I think a lot of people were really disappointed by what they saw from In the Chariots of Fire. That was okay. There was nothing wrong with that. To me, he's still exactly the same horse as he was 2 weeks ago. I think, and I've thought this for a while with Captain Ravishing, I think he might have a niggle somewhere. Most good, big, fast, strong horses do. Whether it's in a knee or something, which, when a horse hangs like that all the time, Greg, there's usually a niggle somewhere. Any horse person will tell you that. And you can often ignore that when they're winning by 31 metres because you're so blown away by the performance. But they've had 2 weeks. They've had the option to go home. They can work on whatever is annoying him, whether it's a back or a knee or a hoof or whatever. And I think driven off the speed, he could do something really special this week, because it might be good for him to get his lungs really full and then just take off at the 800 and just go crazy, because maybe that's what he is. Maybe he's just a genuinely big, high-speed bull. So he's in my top 3. I've gone Spirit, Honolulu Bay to win. Catch a Wave I thought was really good last start, and there's a little chance he might get the lead, little chance. And Captain Ravishing, I just think driven off the speed, if he can peel to the outside, he could do something wicked. And then Spirit of St. Louis is my 4th tip. I think those 4, Greg, sit significantly higher in my mind and above the marketplace than the other 4. Hurricane Harley, good sprint horse. I think it goes leaders back straight away. Braveview Kelly, wonderful last week, but I just can't see her beating these horses. Yeah. Expensive Ego's in the wrong part of the track. He's going to need to work incredibly hard to even get parked at best. And Mark Dan, he was great at Newcastle, but I just don't think the big track suits him. And I haven't seen enough during his career on both sides of the Tasman to suggest that Mark Dan's going to win a Miracle Mile. So there's a large synopsis of the Miracle Mile
large synopsis
out of other people's heads and my head. Coming to you at home.
But if you do want to get that insight from the big 3 players in it, go to the Michael Guerin Twitter page and you'll be able to find that. Just a quick look at that market for you for the Miracle Mile. So 280 on Allure Bay. I think he deserves to be top pick in the race. Captain Ravishing's $4.50 into $4.20. $5 for Spirit of St. Louis. And $4.20 for Catch a Wave. The Garrard's Miracle Mile does feature this mare as well. We're about to have a look at Braveview Kelly getting the job done in the Queen Elizabeth. This was Stylish Memphis's final performance, was in the trail there, couldn't quite round it off. We're doing this, of course, with Garrard's, and she was excellent, 149.5, home in 27.7, and she was too good for Amora Vita, who's still owned in New Zealand, of course. Steve Dolan involved there, charging into second. But Braveview Kelly, she's been the form mare, much like Stylish Memphis has been in the last couple of seasons. She's just simply too good for them, Michael.
Yeah, it was a real passing of the baton. Started from the second from the outside of the second from the outside of the front line. Worked away to the lead, but had to work relatively hard to get around them. Then the stablemate handed, and she just bolted him. So she deserves her place in a good race. I'm not sure she's a real factor in the Miracle Mile. I hope she is, but it's sort of hard to believe she's going to run past all those horses. I think she probably tops out at 148.8, 149. I think there's a few horses here who could get under 148. So Stylish Memphis has done a super job. Well done to Steve and the team with the More Vita. They get her a 149.6 or 7 out of that, and that always looks good in the sales catalogue in the years to come. But I don't think they're a vintage bunch of mares, and therefore I'm not thinking they're going to be a factor in the Miracle Mile, Greg. For a mare to be a factor in a Miracle Mile, they usually need to be very, very good, with maybe the quasi-exception of Baby Bling.
Yeah, and of course we go right back to 67, I think it was, Robin Dundee, winning the first ever Miracle Mile. So it can be done, but this horse, Stylish Memphis, wrapped up her career. This was, for mine, her career best performance. Actually, I spoke to a Kiwi trainer, Mark Jones, yesterday, and he believed the fourth in the Chariots prior to this was even better run. But here she was in 149.2, charging home, Michael, getting the first of 2 victories in the Australian Sprint Championship for the mares. And this was a brilliant performance right down the outside. Gee, it's been a good family, this. Memphis Melodies left Harley Earls 110, Delightful Memphis, of course, 11, and Memphis Tennessee's 110. Here's her overall record. I've just guesstimated her total stakes, Michael, because she's not back in New Zealand, so I sort of transferred her Australian stakes plus about 10%. She won 15 races. That was her career defining moment, if you like. She won 2 of those ladyships. Her Menangle record was excellent, and in those Group 1 placings in New Zealand, she had to cop Amazing Dream, so she picked a pretty tough year to be a star filly, but I thought she deserved a decent sort of a mention on the show. She is in foal to Captain Treacherous, and I understand that Wayne Higgs, who owns her, of course, they won't be going in the sales. He wants to continue to race the family, and yeah, she ends her career not on the high note they were probably hoping for, but she certainly deserves every accolade she gets, Michael.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, she won a New South Wales Oaks.
Yes.
And 2 ladyships, so that's a Group 1 3 years in a row and the toughest track in Australasia. When you have those Trans-Tasman horses, if you do sell them at some stage, the foals, everybody lights up. You put Captain T, Stylish Memphis, everybody's heard of both of them. So that really does help if you want to sell them. But good on Wayne and the team. It would have been really tempting to retire her you could have retired her at 3 or 4 or 5. Could have done any of those things. But they wanted a racehorse. They wanted a horse who was in the race by Grins last year. Good on them for having a real dig and having a lot of fun. And I'm sure she's been tremendously well looked after. And the great thing about Menangle is you're not racing over long distances very often, so it doesn't hurt them very much. So wonderful career, underrated mare, Greg, and you could say alongside probably Adore Me, because she went 47.7 there, is probably the best performed New Zealand female ever at Menangle, because that's a lot of Group 1s.
No, exactly. So she deserves her retirement. Let's move on to what used to be the Bohemian Crystal, Michael. This is a good race. It's called the Ainsworth Australian Light Horse, and BD Joe's in there. We know he had no luck last week. He's come up with a beautiful barrier draw, better Eclipse. I wouldn't have thought barrier 1 was ideal given what he did last week, but he has bounced back from that sort of thing before, so I give him a really big chance. You've got Where You've Been Boppin', Major Meister, who stormed home in his heat in behind Honolulu Bay, Bondi Lockdown, 888. It's just a good race. I Cast No Shadow was excellent. Poor old Krug cops the outside of the front row again.
A lot of class there. It'll be a very good race to feature most nights. It's the consolation to the Miracle Mile. Going through them quickly, Better Eclipse trialled yesterday, Tuesday at Menangle, so had another spin around to make sure he's okay after that gallop, and went 153. He has, of course, won the Chariots there, so it's not a Menangle curse for him. They may have to hold on to him from barrier 1. 3 back on the marker pegs over the 2300, 2400, maybe not a disaster. BD Joe's going well. He can win this race. A lot of speed here early, which could see him handy enough, but I don't see him leading. Bondi Lockdown's the horse to beat. Home in that very quick quarter last week, willing to forgive on that, think the extra distance suits him, and he's top pick. And I cast no shadow, away from Honolulu Bay, you can make a case that if you had a Horse of the Year vote over the last 6 months, a half of the year, I cast no shadow would win it. He's won the Lensmith Mile, he's won the Inter-Dominion, and he's run second in a Hunter Cup. So he absolutely can win. And poor old Krug probably can't, but he was a massive fifth, I thought, last week after working really hard. Good race, that early tempo and where they sit after 400 metres, and who's willing to go on with it, Greg, will be a huge factor. But in many ways, it's the race of the night.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. There's probably 5 or 6 winning chances there. The featured trot is race number 3. Here's Tough Monarch. What a marvel he's been, Michael. He got this win for Ricky Elshin and the team. It was career win number 36 for him. We know him to have won the New Zealand Free-for-All, and he's just been an absolute marvel.
He is now the most winningest horse in Menangle history. He's won 26 or 27 races at Menangle, where they never go slow. He's done a super job for Ricky and the team. I think his best is probably past him, Greg, but he'll be a factor from barrier 1. There's a lot of tough Monarch to get past if you want to get to the winner's circle, but I think the horse we're going to show you next will do so. The best trotter in Australia very clearly is Just Believe, because Greg Sugars, his usual driver, was at Menangle. Bailey McDonough drove him in the Trotters Championship or the Grand Prix last week at Melton, and he got another Group 1. He's in superb form. He's been placed in an Inter-Dominion final at Menangle. I think he turns up there, Greg, and I think this horse, as we head to the break, will be the winner of the Hammerhead on Saturday night.
Yeah, Just Believe is his name. Since joining Jess Tubbs, hasn't missed a place in 15 starts and has won 10 of those. This was Just Believe winning the Grand Prix. Of course, we had Majestic Man in the race, and unfortunately he had to sit park and faded late in the piece. But Just Believe doing what he does best, and that is winning.
Leader shifting off the track. I'm Ready Jet gallop late, and Just Believe's won it. Just Believe from I'm Ready Jet.
Welcome back into your box seat. Let's go back to Ashburton from last Saturday, and here's the Cup in Sam's Town. He's just been in sublime form. Speaking of form though, Michael, no one in better form than the man sitting in the bike. Blair Orange drove the last 5 winners on the bounce at Ashburton. He did this Cup win with Sam's Town, who stormed home. The more significant thing for me was they were for 5 different trainers, so not often that happens when you consider that Blair drives for Cran and Chrissy Dalgetty quite a lot, Graham Court and the like, but to do it for 5 different trainers, and there were a couple of double-figure odds winners there, probably made it more special.
I was reading yesterday, he's done it 12 times. That's a lot. It's like a lot to me, and a couple of times he's driven 6 winners on a card. So what I really took out of this week is that for Blair, he's going to be heading to the World Drivers' Champs, which are, I think, in Germany and Belgium predominantly. What a wonderful thing. And after such a massive body of work, including 3 New Zealand Cups in the last 5 years, to see him get to wear the silver fern for a guy who actually could have ended up wearing the national colours as a league player, at least at age group level, could have. He was about 10 kilos bigger. I think it's wonderful. I think it's great that, you know, he's going to get the chance to do that, Greg, because it's been a tumultuous time for him and he's handled himself remarkably well. So I'm thrilled he gets to head offshore. I think it's in August. It'd be a good trip too. Be a lot of fun going over there, better than going to Aussie. And yeah, the fact you drove 5 winners for 5 trainers at Ashburton, Greg, makes me go, oh, okay, that's cool, because I'm just so used to him having those big days. And that's probably one of the things that's changed the most in harness racing in the last 10 years, is that when Dexter was here, if Dexter or Blair or John has a 5 scale, you don't get them in the North Island very often because we don't have that many races and not many people get that dominant a book. But when that happens these days, I'm just like, okay, that's normal, because those top drivers...
Is it almost they're a victim of their own success?
I think that is too... I think they're very dominant. I think they're very good. And I think what you see with the jockeys and with the American drivers, and even some of them in Australia, like Cam Hart, they're out there all the time.
Yep.
So they're just getting knowledge. So they know everything around them. And they're really relaxed about things. And you do see it occasionally with the jockeys, like an Opie or a Nabba. They're seeing what other people can't see because the other people aren't out there as much. And that's the same with the drivers. It doesn't mean that they're better than Colin de Philippi or they're better than Jimmy Curtin, but if Colin and Jimmy are out there 3 times a night and they're out there 8 or 10, they're just getting more knowledge. And it helps. And then obviously winning builds confidence in any sport. Anybody who's played any sport knows that. So I think you get these real waves with these guys, and Tim Williams, I think, had a 5er last year at Invercargill, I think, where it just seems normal that they win. The only weird part about it was a couple paid double figures, because you often think to yourself, well, how does that happen? Bizarrely, Cameron Hart, who I think is an absolute superstar. I think he's clearly in the top 5 drivers in Australasia, and I don't say that lightly because I do both countries, obviously. He drove a winner last week at Bathurst at $81, Greg. I'm still trying to work out how that happened.
No, very good, Michael. Racing action continued for the 2-day meeting there for Cromwell. It was the Wyndham Club, and Franco Norton, driven by Gemma Thornley. Craig's partner Donna Williamson lost her father, so Craig stood down for the day, and Gemma sat in the bite behind this horse, who'd won brilliantly on the first day, Michael, after missing away and losing, I don't know, 30 metres at least. He's a very good horse, Franco Norton, and he loves this place, and he's dominated them there in the Fruit Bowl Cup.
Didn't he look good? Did he look fit and shiny in the coat, and clearly loves the grass? I think he's got a real factor here, Greg, where he could be a Methven Cup winner in the future type thing. But yes, we know he's a good horse from some of his spring Addington performances. So yeah, condolences to all involved there though with the other passing.
All right, leaving some of our country cups and going to Addington for our preview on Thursday night. This mare, Time Up the Hill. This is her, well, I'm not going to say it's a career best performances because she's been placed at Group 1 level behind Muscle Mountain, as we know, in the free-for-all, and won a green mile and was excellent at 3. But she sat parked outside Sue Princess, and when Katie Cox said, let's go, girl, she did exactly that. She should be pretty hard to beat again this week, Michael. She's in great form. Spoke to Michael Ward. He said we might even consider going to the Rowe Cup if we can get a ferry, because they couldn't get a ferry to Cambridge 10 days ago to put her in the other race, to the Mears Breeders' Stakes. So, look, she's a high-class horse. She's out of a high-class horse, a Majestic Time. The only problem they've got for her now, Greg, is finding a stallion good enough to go to, because she's by Muscle Hill, and some of the other really good stallions are also by Muscle Hill. So Michael said at some stage we're going to find something for her to go to, which will probably be at the end of this year. Yeah, it's a good race. She takes on Eurocash, is in great form. The Bloss, we know, always puts out her absolute best. So looking forward to that. But the Alabar free-for-all, continuing a run of free-for-alls at Addington. I know they're small fields, but gee, they're competitive. Cora Valley Star has gone back-to-back, won over the mile, then a 2,000 metre stand found the front again. This is her winning the New Zealand Bloodstock Air Freight and doing that in good style. Beating the Dunn pair. They go round again. Henry Hubert's racing well. Mighty Louis racing well. The horse just going out of picture shot there was one change. I reckon he'll be very hard to beat. It's 2,600 metres this week, Michael. He had to do a power of work last week, and I just rule a line through that. Blair Orange sat up on him. I spoke to him yesterday about it, and he said, yeah, I reckon he'll be very hard to beat. So much so, Michael, as we'll see later in the show, I've made him my best this week, but it's a good race. Laver, Homebush Lad, the Country Cups King, and the pair of Robert and Jenna Duns means that it's going to be a very competitive go again.
Yeah, hard to get past Corrivelli Star though. Geez, a wonderful little fat fella. He just keeps on trucking. He was great over the mile on 152 and change. He was fantastic there once he stepped away. I spoke to Regan Todd about him. He said eventually he might end up at Menangle because he'll go those big miles. I hope he doesn't, Greg, because it seems like half the horses we have from the country in Menangle don't come back. Hot and Treacherous was sold this week. He's not going to Menangle. I think he's going to Queensland, but that's a story for another day, Greg. I'm glad these races are getting off the ground because we need them. We can't just keep selling all our horses overseas. So no. I hope Corrivelli Star stays here for 3 years.
Yeah, so do I. 5:14 the start time, their 10-race program on Thursday night. Alexandra Park, though, magnificent to be back there. And have a look at this, Michael. I'm not going to say I've never seen the track better, but when we showed that vision a couple of weeks ago, courtesy of John Denton, you thought, how are they ever going to get that back? But they've got that well and truly back, haven't they? And looking forward to being back there on Friday night.
Looks great.
Yeah.
It feels, I live about 5 k's from Alexandra Park, and it just feels like it hasn't been a factor in my life for months.
Well, not this year, basically.
No, exactly, and it's really tough to, and let's not forget, Auckland's the biggest economy and the biggest city in the country, and it's really tough to keep people enthused. But we have massive coverage in the Herald of Harness Racing, but it's hard to keep telling people it's really important if they can't go to the races. Well, they can go to the races this Friday, and there's lots of really big racing coming up over the next 2.5 months. Like we have things, like this meeting heading into the free-for-all next week, that Oaks, the Derby, Taylor Mile Messenger, and then of course the Cups, the Rowe and Auckland Cups on May 26th. Having this back is crucial. But somewhere, Greg, we need to reinvigorate, and it's not media coverage, trust me, it's getting more media coverage than harness racing does in any other part of the country, by a mile. We just need to reinvigorate Auckland harness racing. I'm not sure how we do it, but you lose that interest from that economy, and I've seen it with some other places where you have either moved the track out of town or you don't have enough racing. Gee, it's tricky stuff, Greg. Yep. I have deep concerns about a place which is in my heart. It's in here. It'll be part of me till I die, Alexandra Park. But I have deep concerns about how we reinvigorate interest in it. People will still watch it. Getting them to go, I don't know how we do it. I'm not saying I can solve it, but someone better.
Yep, we need to do that pretty quickly, I think, as well. The Alabar Classic has always been a good race, the 19th running of it. Here's Sooner the Better, and this is the race won by Merlin, who's not there. Sherlock was very unlucky, as we know, and Sooner the Better in front, very brave. Sherlock very unlucky, trying to get out from 3 back on the fence. Sinbad storms down the outside to the outside of the winner, of course, in Merlin. Charlie Brown's there. It's a pretty deep sort of race this week, and not an easy one to line up, although the bookies have found Sherlock shorter than $2.
Yeah, I had a good talk to Mark Purdon about that last night, so the punters had the best information. He said even though he didn't get a run up the marker pegs there, so he hasn't had a chance to open his lungs up, he believes the horse has had enough work to be fit enough to use his good barrier. So he's thinking he'll go forward. He said clearly he's our top pick in the race and we're happy with the horse. There's a lot of gate speed off the front line. I don't see Sooner the Better getting across them quite as easily as he did last start, Greg. So I think he will have a significantly more difficult run. And then Son of Mac, who is outstanding there, has won on the second line and follows out Neptune, who's probably not really a leader. So he's in a bit of pain as well. So when you think Son of Mac's in a tricky place, Sinbad's in a tricky place, Merlin's not there, and Sooner the Better has a wider draw, Alta Meteor is at Menangle. Pretty quickly, you come up with Sherlock as the horse to beat. Yeah, absolutely you do, and he will be the one to beat for sure. We highlighted this horse in the first heat of the Young Guns at Cambridge, and the name, You're Doing Amazing, Sweetie. You have to look at it a couple of times before you can get it out. I tell you what,
The man they call Weenie, Tony Cameron, did exactly that, and it was way too good for them. Pretty impressive by Sunshine Beach, this one.
The Hurleys have had an enormous run with this horse's dam. She's never left a bad horse. She's left plenty of good horses. And I think Tony Hurley's really enjoying this because Tony's got two sons. One of them is Richard, and Richard's ever only owned two horses. One of them was the first foal out of this mare, and then this fella. So he owns it with his mum, Suzanne. A great kid, Richard. Should say kid, he's an adult now. But I've always thought about him as being a kid because I've known him since he was a baby. Yeah, fantastic for Richard to get a good horse. I know Tony's really enjoying it. There's no reason to think he won't roll forward here and be the horse to beat. So Frisco Bay looks a pretty good horse for Ray Green and for Lincoln Farms,
yep.
But drawn slightly wide and probably has to come around the favourite who, all things being equal, should probably win again.
Yep, should do. Looking forward to seeing the boys strut their stuff around Alexandra Park, as I am the girls. Yes, they have got a heat of the young guns for the ladies this week, and Kiss is the one I wanted to highlight. Gets to the outside here and finds the line really strongly. That's her 3 wide. There was a lot to like about this. Frisco Bay wins it in the middle, but I like this daughter of Always Be Mickey. Just have a look at her get to the line here, Michael. She comes up with barrier 1. I think there's a little bit of greenness there, but gee, she'll get a chance from that draw.
Yeah, like a lot of the Always Be Mickeys, there can be a little bit of a step in their gait because they're quite long striding horses. So when they're learning, they can be a bit like that. But once we know they get a head of steam up, they can be very good. So when you look at that video, the winner is in the boys' race, and this is the girls' race. So therefore, you're not up against Frisco Bay. Thought Kiss from barrier 1 with the marker pegs to aid it. Clearly the one to beat. Logan Hollis and Shane Robertson have a really nice horse in that race as well. So even though Barry and Scott have 3 and look to dominate, I thought with only 5 starters and their horse at barrier 4, it could potentially roll across them and be quite hard to beat. But yes, I agree with the video choice. Kiss is the one who deserves the favouritism for the girls' heat of the young guns.
Little Hoof Anani, I think that one's called.
That's why I didn't try and say it, because I couldn't get it right.
I think that's how you say it. We'll go with that anyway.
You're in charge.
9 race program there on Friday night. Be great to be back at Alexandra Park. A couple of things I wanted to touch on, Michael. Just back to the Addington meeting. There's only 3 3-year-olds out of about 112, 115 horses that are going around at Addington, which just shows you how things have changed. Normally this time of year, the fields are full of 3-year-olds. The other thing is it's the Founders Cup next week, and there's got to be a little bit of trepidation about who might be available for that race. Obviously, Copy That's not in play. You've got BD Joe, Alta Wise Guy both in Australia, although Alta Wise Guy might be back. I doubt he'll be there. You were saying Akuta will go around in it, but not Self-Assured.
Yeah,
so,
Akuta goes to the workouts this week. And
as does Kango, by the way. Just got news through from Anna Donnelly about that.
Yeah, so Akuta goes, as you with Kango. Self-Assured had a little setback, 3 days, nothing important. So Akuta is ready to race next week. Self-Assured is not, but he's totally fine. With Hot and Treacherous heading offshore, we lose another open class horse. Typo's also at Menangle this week, he's gone. There's still a nice clump because there's no real North Island and South Island. For the good horses, they don't exist. They just go where the races are. This week it's at Menangle. So here's the clump. We have Self-Assured, obviously Akuta, Copy That. We presume he's going to come back from that bleed he had. Then the 2 Telfer horses, Telfer Cullen horses, BD Joe and Alta Wise Guy. Krug will come back to the North Island because I'm sure he's going to get a spot in the race by Grins, and he's going really well. Republican Party might come back, but we'll park him to the side. Kango for Anna Donnelly. So you got that main clump, and then Old Town Road, of course, who's in the race by Grins and can win it, and ran 3rd in the Hunter Cup. So if you put those horses in one bunch, Greg, that's a really good bunch for the race by Grins. Obviously, Better Eclipse is coming to that as well. Miracle, Taylor Mile, Messenger, and the Auckland Cup. So there's good horses there. Then you might add the Rough and Readies of the world, who's going really well. You might add a couple more. There's a few more floating around. And then you have the option that some of these horses racing in the south potentially come north. The problem is it's quite scary to come north to take on those horses because they're so good. And then you've also got to say with Team Telford, do they roll the dice on All-American Lover and Padhura in these good races? So there's no disaster here. It's not like, oh my God, what are we going to do? These races won't all get off the ground. The best races will, Greg. It's just tough when you know that we also could have had, you know, the Major Jealouses and the Hot and Treacherouses and Mark Shards and all those sort of horses to really embellish those races. So don't panic. There's still going to be a race by Grins and a Mirror and a Taylor Mile and a Messenger and an Auckland Cup. They're still going to be there and they're still going to be bloody good races. But yes, we've lost that 8 to 15 bunch, Greg. And that's the bunch where, with those other good horses here, it's going to be really hard for the Duns or Regan Todd to say, oh, okay, I'll chuck Cora Valley Star on the truck.
Or Henry Hubert or the like.
Yeah, because you're sort of saying, well, if I do that, can I really win? So the other horse I've lost, of course, is South Coast Arden, who's also heading to Sydney to go to the Fitzpatricks.
Yep, it's a real challenge at the moment, no doubt, but we'll see what unfolds next week, leading towards the Founders. Cambridge, they've got their awards night coming up on the 11th. Go to cambridgeraceway.co.nz. It's $95 a head. They'll have a great night, and that's resurrecting the Northern Awards. They had the Battle of the Breeds there on Sunday as part of their two-day meeting, and it was good to see the likes of Cosiazano there, Taylor Mitchell, who you did a wee story on, Michael. We've got some photographs of some of the form, the saddle trot there, Taylor Mitchell getting the business done, not unique to Cambridge Raceway, seeing that name to the fore, and yeah, it was just a really entertaining day and enjoyed by all. And here was the dual sulky race, the Wizard and Cosiazano getting through to beat David Butcher, and have a look. I think that's Noel Harris leaning forward there, Michael. So yeah, good fun, eh?
Well, it's appropriate in a place like Cambridge that you,
look at the
try
great man,
and tap into
NGH,
that.
Eh?
Isn't he one of the best? He's just a champion, Noel. And Cambridge is a horse town. It's the most, alongside Matamata, the horse town of New Zealand. And it's great to tap into that. And I'm hoping that heaps of our Gallop's friends can get along to the race by Grins on the 14th. They love going to the duels. They loved it. So let's hope that that void in their harness experience can be fueled by the race by Grins, but still really cool to tap into that.
And you can see they enjoyed themselves there. They were having a great time. Well done to Joe Stevens, to David Branch and the team there. Because
harness racing people love going to Karaka Million. They love going to Cup Day at Riccarton. So why wouldn't the Gallops people like? It's just nice to go look at some horses and have a beer and not have to do any work.
Yep.
So that's how you tap into that, and David and the team tapped into it a little bit last week, and it was really cool.
What about the race by Grins market, Michael, if you were to play into it? I know you're probably saying you want to be a little bit careful at this stage, but Akuta Self-Assured both at $4.20, BD Joe Old Town Road at $5, copy that at $6, Catch a Wave $7.50, Bondi Lockdown $9, Major Meister out to about $15, and then Better Eclipse and Krug at $17. Or a horse like Cast No Shadow, who's $21. What sort of chance do you see of one of them coming across?
I think there's a chance one of them comes. So you've got four who are there. Copy that's going to get a spot, clearly. The Krug will get a spot. Absolutely no doubts Krug will get a spot, unless something goes wrong this week at Menangle. So then you say who else will be there. BD Joe will be offered a spot. Whether Steve wants to take it, I do not know. Even Alta Wise Guy might get offered a spot. I think the last three spots, Greg, are going to be quite loose. Then you say to yourself, will someone do enough business to get Bondi Lockdown here? I'd be really keen on them. If I had a slot now and it wasn't full, and I'm taking copy that out of play, you start saying, do I want Krug or BD Joe, or do I go shopping for one of the Aussies? The other option, and it won't happen, is do you try and get Merlin? But Merlin's owner's got more money than all of us put together, so he doesn't need to be going to the race by Grins. They've also got their own spot, Aussie lads, so they won't take Merlin in it, but they've got to find another horse because Rock and Roll Do's gone. Yep. So unlike last year where it sort of filled up quite systematically for a while, there's about three spots there now, Greg, where you go, either we might take a horse we probably think can't win, or we need to think outside the square. And as outside the square, I Cast No Shadow or Bondi Lockdown, do you add a sweetener to that? Do you say we pay for your flights? Do you say you come do that, then stay for the Auckland Cup and the Taylor Mile? Majestic Cruiser did it last year. with the messenger and
the negotiations are well and truly on, Michael.
And I think people are going to need to think outside the square here if they want to get a winning chance, because you can go, I'm going to get a winning chance, Bondo Lockdown, or I'm going to get a horse which probably can't win but will be comfortable with. Well, you don't go in races not to win.
No, exactly. So looking forward to seeing what unfolds there. With Harness Link, this is not the maiden win of the week because it was a graduation final, but I wanted to show it anyway. Have a look at Who's Delight here. Came wide in the NZB Harness Million at his previous start and obviously couldn't beat them, but he's got to get a little bit more tractability, Michael, but you can only win, and he did that in really good style.
Nice reminder lesson for all punters. Listen to this and listen again and put it in your mind and keep it there. When horses come out of good 3-year-old races and drop back to the grades, more often than not they win. He was in the Harness Million, he dropped back to what was a quasi-maiden, and he sat 3 wide and 1 grid. And that's just one of the punting lessons I've learnt over the last 5 years. Our 3-year-olds have become so good, when you drop them back in against normal horses, they usually win.
Yep, and that's exactly what happened last Friday at Cambridge. All right, time for us to take our last break. On the other side, we'll update you on Team Teal, find you a couple of winners and wrap up where you can go harness racing this weekend in New Zealand. In your home straight, in your box seat. Don't forget to get hold of us. You can email us, boxseat@gmail.com. You can do that. Boxseatnz it is actually, at gmail.com. I'm sure our man and G-Born will put that along the bottom for you. Send us in what you'd like to see on the show, and if you've got any thoughts around those looking for a runner in the race by Grins, then yeah, send those through as well. We won't mind reading them out and debating about who they potentially the slot holders should go with. So let's have a look at Team Teal and where it's at, and 52 wins so far, Michael. So they're absolutely flying. At the top of that is Sarah O'Reilly. She's driven 9 winners. The Tomlinsons, Cherie on 7 and Kieran on 6. Gemma Thornley's having a heck of a run. She drove 3 on Sunday at Cromwell. Kirsten Grins on 4. Olivia Thornley is on 3, along with Alicia Harrison, Lee Hibble and Sam Otley. They're all on 3, so they're doing really well. And more importantly, Michael, over $20,000 raised thus far. So yeah, the Team Teal finishes about the middle of March. They've got a fundraiser at Addington Raceway, a quiz night as well coming up. So go to HRNZ for further details on that. But when you're getting up over 20,000, it's quite significant, Michael.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Australasian wide, I think it's around 200,000. One name on that list we haven't had a chance to talk about much is Leah Hibble. Most of those female drivers we've spoken about enough, or we've seen them on the show because they've done such great things. Leah's just starting her career and she's produced some really cool drives for Nikki Chilcott recently, so well done to Leah. She's driving well and often, not just in those junior type races. You know, she's racing in against the older drivers at Cambridge. So well done to you, Leah. You're part of contributing to something really cool.
Yep, congratulations on what you've achieved thus far. We'll keep an eye on that Team Teal total, but where can you go harness racing around Aotearoa? This week, we're at Addington on Thursday night. 10 races, 5:14. They don't race next week, of course, the Coast, Westport and Reefton on Friday and Sunday respectively. 3:17 the start time. Winton have a 10-race program there on Friday. It's Alabar 3-year-old Classic at Alexandra Park. 9-race program, 6 o'clock they get things underway there. And Rangiora have 9 races on Sunday, 12:59. So a little bit light compared to what we've had over the last couple of months, but when you chuck in Menangle on Saturday night and so much interest there on the $1 million Miracle Mile night, there's still plenty of harness racing there for followers. Michael, last week, I'm going to say we were slightly unlucky. We had a chance to get a decent collect, but we got run over in the second leg of you and I's multi, and I spoke to Graham Hand and he said, I'm definitely going to lift my game for this week. So where are you going?
I really like Advanced Party. She's up against the horse who beat her last week in Mr. Kaplan. I think Mr. Kaplan will probably lead again. But Advanced Party was good, should be improved, and this time should be sitting on the back of Mr. Kaplan. So good to see racing back at Alexandra Park. Looking forward to being there on Friday night. And Advanced Party, I think it's around $1.90. It's short enough, Greg, but I think she's a very good filly.
I'm really keen on One Change this week. I just think it's his turn. It seems to be turnabout in many respects, although Coravelli Star has won the last couple of those. I really like One Change. It'll be interesting to see what sort of price comes out with the bookies late on Wednesday afternoon. But yeah, I think One Change is a massive chance. And Graham, the hand milking man, has gone to Winton. He's gone race 1, number 3, Flying Alley, into race 5, number 4, Julie Jacker, and we need to boost that figure for the Breast Cancer Foundation up towards 5,000 and beyond as we continue on with your season of the box seat. Michael, we got your best bet. We're on Advanced Party. We know what you're thinking Miracle Mile wise. Gee, it's going to be a cracking night there on Saturday night. Looking forward to you being over there as part of their coverage and bringing that all back for our show next week.
And then, Greg, we reignite open class racing in the North Island. It hasn't happened for a long time. A lot of questions, a lot of things to be answered heading through the race by Grins up to May 26. So stick around. We're back at the park. Let's get the Miracle Mile done well. And we are on for what's going to be a huge autumn. Yep, summer's finished. It wasn't much fun. Autumn coming up here in the north.
Yeah, looking forward to all of that. Don't forget those forums too in the north put together by the Cambridge Club. Manawatu on the 6th and at Cambridge on the 8th. If you did fill out the survey, you have to click to register to go along there. And speaking to David Branch, they want all of those people who filled in the survey, the breeders, the owners, everyone to have a say on the future of Northern Harness. And without that and you getting your chance to have a say, then you're not really in a position to be complaining about it. That's been your box seat for the week. Michael and I will catch you in 7 days. The box seat brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Harness Link for your worldwide harness coverage. New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, where winning begins. Brecon Farms. Stonewall Stud. IRT, it's your horse and our passion. Australasian-wide Garrard's Horse and Hound. Renwick Farms. Lincoln Farms. Harness Racing New Zealand. And the clubs Addington, Ashburton, Alexandra Park and Cambridge.